morning, fourth graders. This is our math e-learning lesson for Monday, April 6th. Today we're going to be looking at lesson 112, decimal number line, tenths. So first let's start by looking at this illustration up here. If we were to write a mixed number that goes with this illustration, what would that be? A mixed number. Remember, mixed number, whole number, and a fraction. So we take a look. We see that we have three squares, or they probably look more like rectangles. Either way, we have three figures completely shaded in. Okay, so there is our 3. And then this one, although you can't see it, I'm going to tell you, it is divided up into 10 equal parts, each horizontal bar here. Okay, there are 10 of them, 10 equal parts. So we have 3 whole figures shaded in, and then we have 1, just this first one up here is shaded in, 1 out of 10. So we have 3 and 1/10 shaded in, 3 whole figures shaded in, and 1/10 of another. That's how we could write it as a mixed number. We could also write it as a decimal number, and 3 and 1/10 as a decimal number would be 3. And then remember that tenths have only one place to the right of the decimal point. And then how many tenths do we have? Just 1. So 2 ways that we can write what this figure is showing us. We have it as a mixed number, 1, 2, 3, and 1/10 of that last figure, or as a decimal number, 3 and 1/10. You could also say 3.1. Now, today we're also going to be looking at a number line. Okay, the number line here, if you count up, you will see that there are 10 equal parts. Remember I told you that this is a lesson on tenths. So the number line is divided up into 10 equal parts. So we have 2 to 3 here, and then from 3 to 4 here. And each portion, each part, is divided up into 10 equal parts. It's our job now to identify where the arrow is pointing. To what tenth is that pointing to? What does this spot on the number line represent? Well, again, just like when you were writing mixed numbers and you were looking at a number line and you had to write a mixed number, you needed to remember that you have to look to see what does it come between. So for example, here we started with 2, it goes from 2 to 3. So anything in here would be 2 and a certain number of tenths. For example, let's look at this spot right here. Okay, we see that this is a spot that comes between 2 and 3. So we know then the whole number would be 2. And then we look to see how many tenths is it after the 2. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 4/10 after the 2. So we could write it as a mixed number, 2 and 4/10. Or we could write that as a decimal, and that would look like this, 2 and 4/10. Remember that there's just the one place to the right of the decimal point. So in the past, you would have written it like this as a mixed number, and now you're going to write it like this as a decimal. Okay, so 2 and 4/10. Okay, let's look over here where our arrow is pointing, and we're looking to see what number is that on the number line. So first thing we look at to see what is it coming between, what is it in between? It's in between 3 and 4. So we know it's more than 3 but less than 4. So right away that gives you your whole number, 3. Then you look to see, well, how many tenths after the 3 is it? And you can see it's just 1/10 after the 3. Again, if we wrote it as a mixed number, it would look like this, 3 and 1/10, but writing it as a decimal, 3 and 1/10. Okay? Remember that we want to be writing it as a decimal now. Okay, but again, just reminding you how it looked as your mixed number and now how it looks as your decimal. Okay, if you go further down on your page, they show you a centimeter ruler. So let's take a look at that centimeter ruler. That's down on example 1. It says to find the length of this segment to the nearest tenth of a centimeter and write the length as a decimal number. So we're doing the same thing as we did here on the number line, but now we're looking at a ruler. Again, they're telling us this is a centimeter ruler. Okay, remember that your centimeters, okay, about the width of your finger, okay, and so that this line here would indicate the 0, and then this would be 1 centimeter, 2, 3, 4, and then past 4. Okay, so now we're looking at this line that was drawn right above the centimeter ruler, and this is where that line ends. I kind of put a circle there, a dot, a large dot there, so that you could see that's where that line segment ends, right here. Okay, so now we need to identify that. What decimal number is that? Well, it's just past the 4, but you can see this is the 5 here, so it's between 4 and 5. It's between 4 and 5. You know your whole number then is 4. And then these are divided up into tenths. Okay, remember it's 10 millimeters equals a centimeter. So it's divided up into tenths, and we have to look to see how many tenths past the 4 is it. And we have 1, 2 tenths past the 4. So 4 and 2 tenths. Remember, we are writing it as a decimal. But if we were writing it as a mixed number, it would look like this. Right? Again, this is how you've written it in the past. This is how you're writing it now as a decimal. 4 and 2 tenths. Okay, because it's tenths, remember, just one place after the decimal point. And your whole number is always to the left of the decimal. Okay, turn the page and we can take a look at your practice. And the practice tells you to write the decimal number to which each arrow points. Write the decimal number to which each arrow is pointing. Okay, I'm going to erase this to give us a little bit more room here on the board. Okay, so let's take a look. A, B, C, and D. Okay, so here's A. Again, you know that there are 10 spaces. Again, we're identifying decimal numbers and we're looking at tenths. So in between every pair of numbers, your number line is divided up into 10 equal parts, tenths. So you automatically know that each section is divided up into tenths. So the first arrow is here. Okay, I'll just make this a little bit bigger. Okay, right here. So where does it fall between? It falls between 4 and 5. So you know it's more than 4, but less than 5. 4. And again, we're writing decimal numbers. And then we just look to see, well, how many tenths past the 4 is it? We have 1, 2, 3. Okay, 3 tenths past the 4. Whole number 4. So then we put the decimal point because it's our whole number 4. And we count up how many places past the 4 is it? It's 3 places past the 4. It's 3 tenths past the 4. So 4 and 3 tenths. Greater than 4, less than 5. Okay, let's look at B. Okay, this is where our arrow points for B. We look to see, what does it come between? It comes between 5 and 6. So we know it's going to be more than 5, but less than 6. So our whole number is 5, decimal point, because now we're going to look to see how many tenths past the 5 is. So we look 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, it's 5 tenths past the 5. 5 and 5/10. Also, 5/10. Remember, anytime when we worked with fractions and mixed numbers, anytime the numerator is half of the denominator, you know it's also equal to a half. So this is 5 and 5/10. 5 out of 10 is half. So we can see that this is actually 5 and a half if we were to write it as a mixed number. As a decimal, 5.5 or 5 and 5/10. Okay, let's take a look at C, which is here. And first thing we do, what two numbers does it come between? It comes between 6 and 7, which tells us it's greater than 6 but less than 7. Greater than 6, and now we're going to count up how many tenths past 6 it is. And so we start 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It is 8 tenths past the 6. 6 and 8/10. Okay, it's greater than 6, less than 7, but you can see it's very close to 7. And then our last one here is D, which is right here. We look, it comes between 7 and 8, so we know it's greater than 7, less than 8. 7, and then we look to see how many tenths past the 7 is it. And so we start 1, 2, 3, 4. It is 4 tenths past the 7. 7 and 4/10. Okay. All right, so again, just remember that you're thinking in terms of the way you did with your mixed number. You always want to look to see what does it come between. Look at that first and identify that first, as over here with A. Okay, it comes between 4 and 5. It comes between 4 and 5, so it can't be 6 or 7. It's between 4 and 5, which means it's going to be a little bit more or something more than 4 but less than 5. So your whole number will be 4, and then you simply have to count up how many tenths after 4 is it. All right, so today you will work on lesson 112. That's numbers 1 to 30. Numbers 1 to 30. Please make sure that you use your reference numbers if you need to go back into previous lessons to review anything. Again, if you have questions, you need help, please make sure you reach out to me, let me know so that we can work through it together. Okay, don't forget also IXL or extra math. Make sure you're spending time on that. I'm logging in. Not everyone has been spending time there. Please make sure you are. That's really important that you master those multiplication facts. And those who are in IXL, it's really important that you can continue to go into other skills and work on some other things on your own. Okay? I'll talk to you later. Bye.